Hello, everybody. This is Jennifer Williams with the podcast host of LUXE Life. And today on our show, we have the pleasure of bringing to you a solar pioneer. Please introduce yourself.
Um, Hi, my name is Fred Paris, and I'm the owner of Plymouth Solar Energy in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And I'm pleased to be here today to share some of the exciting things that are happening in the business. We're really excited about 2023. The different tax credits and the incentives that we see materializing from both local and federal government really make a lot of sense, and both from the residential perspective as well as the commercial perspective. On the commercial perspective, which is exciting, the idea is not only the investment tax credits from the government, but there's also accelerated depreciation and bonus depreciation. And we see in a lot of cases, even larger commercial systems are breaking even in less than 6 years. And that
That's
is
amazing.
phenomenal. We used to see 12-year, and then it was 9-year break evens, and then we were down at the 8s, and here we are. I've done the arithmetic last night on a significant 20 kilowatt size system and a nice size business system, and the break even was less than 6 years. So we're excited about that from a financial point, but people also go with solar energy because they want to be green. So we see about 30% of our customers are making decisions not on the financial part of it. Of course, they want to see a good break even, but they also want to be green. They want to feel like they can do something. There are some exciting things happening in the residential market where we're putting in batteries now, and a lot of our solar systems, the batteries are used for literally, we're approaching 24-hour solar. They use sun all day, live on the batteries all night, and have no connection to the grid. Well, they do have a connection to the grid, but primarily it's the only reason why they have a connection, so they can sell stuff back.
Sure. It's like a reverse feed.
Right. This is the new model of what we're calling the hybrid house, where half of the house is completely off grid and the other half remains on the grid. And what happens if there is a power failure? That part that remains on the grid then joins the rest of the off grid appliances and so forth for a certain number of hours. People ask me, well, how many hours will the battery last? And we typically try to design it for 25 to 35 hours. The rationale behind that is that if you have solar, the odds are pretty good that the sun is going to shine in sometime in the next 24 hours. For those instances where we have heavy snow cover, we have alternatives that we advise the customers what to do in those instances, including with some ground mounts. They actually go out and clean the snow off.
Amazing.
But the idea is we're reaching a point where people are totally, they're generating their own electricity, they're storing their electricity, and they have a lot of resiliency, and they're not really dependent on the grid anymore as much as they used to.
Sure. I could definitely see where that would be a huge benefit. It would, the reduction in carbon footprint, as well as we have so many green initiatives that are going out. So you touched a little bit on the tax break, tax benefits, and obviously they're when we're talking about regional, unless it's a federal, it depends region to region what they're giving. So what are you seeing as far as tax breaks and any kind of incentives in order to do this?
The big one, of course, is the federal tax credit. It's a 30% federal tax credit off of the price. So if a customer is spending $30,000, they can expect that credit will be worth $10,000. And the tax credit, a lot of people think that real dollars, but we often have to explain that a tax credit is against taxes that you might owe.
Sure,
So
they're not giving you back a check for that, but it's a reduction in what you might owe in taxes to the government, almost like a write-off, if you will. And it
exactly,
gives
it's
you
a
that credit back.
credit towards something you owe.
Sure.
However, in the new plan, which was signed in August, the IRA infrastructure plan, nonprofits and municipalities can actually, they don't pay taxes, but they can get a check. They can get cash. So we're working on the articulating that to our nonprofit customers. We have a lot of churches and so forth who've always wanted solar but could never capitalize on the tax credits. And
Sure.
now we're searching, and we think we've understand it thoroughly, where the nonprofits will actually have an opportunity to get a cash.
Which
So
is huge. A nonprofit, that's one of their biggest struggles is, besides a volunteer, is
right, so
funding.
they still have to pay for the system, but they'll get a big hunker. They'll get 30% of it back when
Sure,
it's complete.
sure. And it's almost like they're paying it forward as far as their electrical use, because they're going to use electric. There's no rhyme or
Yeah,
reason, but they,
totally.
I mean, it's they're paying ahead. They're hedging against the market for the utilities. So we've also talked about in a previous interview, off camera, it was, you are taking homes, especially in the luxury market, and taking them all off grid. The cost, the return on investment might not be there, but it's the impact that the homeowners are making on, just, it's the benefit and what they're doing in the environment. So can you talk a little bit about that, about how it's where solar has gone luxury?
Well, it's more luxury in a couple of ways. One way, when it's first, we have to realize everything is going electricity. I was in Home Depot the other day. People were buying electric lawnmowers. All of the tools now are battery powered. The people are buying cars, electric cars, and electric trucks, and we've got a configuration where they can plug their car into the house in case they get a blackout. The car will keep the house going for some.
Isn't that amazing? Who would have thought?
Who'd have thought? I guess you can't really go anywhere since your car is power through the house. But in any case, the high end market is where we see uh, the really unique configurations going in. We see people putting solar trackers in the backyard, which is feeding into a series of batteries, and the batteries then power the house. And there are algorithms that shift different loads in the house
Sure.
onto different sources depending upon the time of day. Um, for example, if we have a very low utility rate at 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe that's the time that the electric car starts to be charged up. So there are a
Sure.
lot of things that can be done with today's solar system, where it's more than just putting solar panels on the house and keeping the lights going on. Today, we're really looking at energy management, where there are times of the day where it's best to sell back energy to the utility. Um, the utilities are supporting the installation of storage media and batteries. And here in Massachusetts, we have connected solutions where the utility will actually pay you if you allow them to tap your battery instead of them going to a brownout or a situation. So on a hot August afternoon, the grid is suffering. The utility has the authority, with the homeowner's permission, of course,
Yes.
to go
Yeah.
ahead and tap that battery. And they would rather be tapping thousands of batteries than buying energy from another source during these times. So we think the future is going to be more and more storage. That storage allows for time of day consumption and allows for resiliency when the grid goes down. And it means that the solar energy is it's going to be a valuable part of the household infrastructure, understanding how energy is used and how
Yeah.
it's when it's not used. And right now we're balancing the electrical load of a customer's house, and say they have a $400 a month electric bill um, to the size of the solar that we put in. And then the third element is the size of the storage. And so you've got the electrical use, you've got the utility, you've got the storage. And the whole idea is to balance that and find a sweet spots where it's economically viable for the customer, and they go green all at once.
It's amazing. The thought that you can take, I mean, the sun, it's there. And when it's not, we're not, so harvest it. It's there for us to use and to use it to our benefit. And then it helps us to reduce the dependency on other fossil fuels and things that might aren't as good for our planet. And we had also talked a little bit about, besides being in that luxury market, a lot of times it's also about being aware of existing panels and the disposal of the batteries. I know that's a huge thing a lot of people talk about. I have these existing solar panels. What do I do with them? And I have these batteries. They're expired. What do I do with them? But if I remember correctly, you have the answers for that.
Well, not the answers. We've been looking far and wide for answers. We teamed up with a recycle company, and this recycle company, and the way we found them is that they recycle all of the shrink wrap on boats. We live on the coast here, so there are millions of boats that get shrink wrapped every autumn, and in the spring they unshrink them. And that shrink wrap is not a environmentally friendly material.
No, it's super thick,
The,
super tough, heat sealed. Yes.
Yeah, I went to did a couple of jobs at marinas, and I was curious about how they do this. And they teamed us up with a recycle company, and we've been talking now for several months. I don't have a lot of materials to get rid of yet. The solar panels, believe it or not, solar panels, they rarely go bad. We've got thousands of solar panels installed, and I don't think we've seen half a dozen bad panels this year.
Amazing. So, but
The panels don't go bad. What goes bad is the electronics, the inverters need servicing. So I haven't had a lot of solar panels to get rid of. However, we wanted to set up a methodology that when we do, because being in this business now for almost 20 years, we can see that a lot of those systems will be coming apart pretty soon, and
sure.
you need to. So we found two recycling companies. One of them, after some research, we found that they were just going to a landfill. So that wasn't
that's counterproductive. That's not good.
We found a company now who we have to ship panels to New Jersey, is where this company is, but they allow us to do it incrementally. So we have a couple of dumpsters, and when the dumpsters get full, we call them and they come and pick it up. And we did a little vetting to make sure that they were really recycling, not landfilling. Batteries are another issue. We haven't had to recycle any batteries yet, but battery recycling is a pretty known methodology today with all the car batteries and all the truck batteries and so forth. We know how to recycle batteries, so that I don't see a big problem with.
Sure. So it's not ending up in a landfill somewhere. And then that way we don't have to worry about, again, having a negative impact on the environment. We're looking to, have a positive, a positive impact.
Absolutely. So anyway, the idea is to break these solar panels down into the glass and the plastic and the aluminum, and the batteries have a new challenge now. There's a lithium.
Yes.
There's a lithium element in there that needs to be extracted, and apparently the battery people all know how to do that.
They figured out how to do that.
So I think that the idea that all of this stuff is going to be recycled and have to be, addressed in the future. We're pretty much onto that. I mean, there's a lot of people working on that, and I don't think it's going to be a bigger problem. I think that people see a revenue opportunity in recycling. Another
Sure,
aspect is that a lot of the manufacturers now are considering adding a recycle cost into the project when they sell it, so that at the end of its life cycle, the cost is already covered for recycling. It was paid
sure,
when the system was purchased. Which
sure.
leads me to one other aspect that I'd like to touch on, and that is services today. Um, 10 years ago, when you put in a solar energy system, and if you did it right, you'd probably go back there, years later, and it's still working. I don't have any 20-year systems. I've got 17-year-old systems that I have never been to, but we know they're working because we monitor all the time. The newest systems, however, have really sophisticated inverters. They have batteries. They have software in them. You need somebody to rely on when you have to install these systems. To the point to where we've just started a big service department with new people and a couple of trucks, because the amount of service that we're seeing from solar energy systems is growing exponential. And a lot of the companies that were involved in solar, and those, up until last year, there was a lot of companies that came in and did a few jobs and they left. They just couldn't. The job takes so long to do that the cash flow hurts along the way, and there's a
Sure.
lot of unless you have deep pockets, it's a tough business. So we're servicing hundreds of customers that were installed by other people. And what we do is we first of all inspect it, because we don't want to issue a service contract for all the jobs. There are some of them that we wish they didn't exist, but they're not. We fix
It's
them.
the reality.
Oh, and we fix them, and in many instances, if it's a good system, we'll give the customer a service contract. But the idea of services is something really important today in today's solar business. You can't just expect to put a system in and not respond to it. Sometimes the software needs upgrading. There's revisions that come from the manufacturer. There are little tweaks that you can do. You can fine tune the system. You can change the time of day for solar contribution to the batteries and so forth. So these systems are actually manageable today. And we think that differentiates us from those companies that just sell the system and move on to the next one.
Yeah, your knowledge is so expansive. I think that choosing you to service the fact we don't have solar panels, we've talked about it, and between the costs and then the return on investment, and we started diving in and asking the tough questions, and the salesperson couldn't answer those questions. They just wanted the sign here and go ahead and leave. And there's also the caveat of who actually owns the panels. I mean, they're being installed on your home. So there's so many things and so many questions that people, if they have been, turned off by solar, should reach out and get a hold of you and find, how do we do that safely? How can we feel confident that somebody that has the knowledge like you can do that? You want that confidence. I don't want somebody knocking. I'm going to trust someone a lot less that's knocking on my door saying, will you buy the $60,000 unit that we want to attach to your house? Oh, and by the way, you don't own it. We are leasing it.
Right.
You're a pioneer in solar. I would trust you far more.
There are some legitimate leasing and ways of acquiring solar, but there's a lot of snake oil out there too.
There was snake oil, and we were like, you need to leave.
We see people just kill my phone here. We see people with leases for a solar system that's on their house, and when they go to sell the house, And the new people, let's hope the new people will, in most get the best way to do it is the new person just takes over the payments and they keep going.
Sure.
But in a lot of instances, the owner of the solar system, that's who's getting the money from who's leasing it to, they just want to get paid. Their contract is not transferable. So the customer has to pay off the solar system before they can sell their house. And we have horror stories from real estate people who have beautiful big jobs fall through because the customer had a $60,000 solar system on the roof that they didn't own. And now that it's been up there a few years and they're selling their house, and they go back and they find out it's only going to cost $52,000 to buy it. So they find
Yeah.
themselves in a real. A lot of people in my state here, Massachusetts, the real estate people, they don't like to see solar on a house because it complicates the deal. In California, the solar on a house makes the house more valuable.
Sure.
Here in Massachusetts, the realtors haven't picked up on that yet. I think some of the owners have. Some of the banks have. We had a bank inquire about us about how much energy will this house is expected to get, and we had put in a significant size system there. And so we said, about $300 a month in electricity in today's market. Well, that allowed the people who were applying for the mortgage to get the mortgage because they had $300 in expenses that they did not have to pay every month. So that was, that
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's another way to the benefit of green.
Yeah, and so this happened twice already, where the bank asked us what the output of the solar system would be,
Sure.
and I wasn't involved in the application process, but I think they were using it to determine the new homeowner's discretionary income. So if they had a
Yes.
$300 to play with,
Yep.
that closed the deal.
That makes so much sense. And then I know that I just took a course yesterday or a webinar yesterday about renewable energy through Chicago Association of Realtors. And we talked about appraisals and appraisers looking at things that are green, as well as another one today with guaranteed rate affinity. And that was about renovations and green. So it's really we're really as realtors trying, and the appraisers, we're trying to get the words out there. We're trying to understand it. We're trying to, and again, you're a perfect fit to come to our program to get that word out. Hey, we have questions, or how do we manage this? Because sometimes people they'll shy away. We're in Chicago. We see the solar panels are going up on Chase. All the Chase banks have solar panels now. I feel that we're going to see that greater, but again, it goes back to the theory of the snake oil salesman, and how do I trust this and then sign here and then you're leaving? I don't think so.
One of the things that I've thought of in the last couple of weeks, customers says, well, how do I know, who to go with? There's like 6 solar companies around, and how do we go with? Well, I like to use the analogy of a doctor. You go with the doctor who's done that same operation 100 times rather than the new guy.
Yeah.
The new guy might have some tweak or lower price or whatever, but these jobs are really complex. I mean, you're dealing with the municipality, you're dealing with the electric company, the utility.
Yeah.
You're dealing with. We have all kinds of structural analysis that we have to do on every house. We have to
Sure.
the house
The weight load, yes, because you're adding something to the roof of the roof structure if it's something that's fixed. Mm-hmm.
The bureaucracy that has built up around the business is it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, it's the hot topic these days.
A simple little job, a little solar job on a Cape Cod house or something like that, 5 kilowatt small job. It takes 3 months of paperwork.
Oh, I'm sure.
there are 35, actually, I think it's 37 now. There are 37 official documents. You have to appeal to zoning, you have to appeal to,
Sure.
here in Massachusetts, we have historical
Yes.
historical committees that, don't let you build on this whole house because it's here from the 1700s or whatever. So you just have to keep going. It's a crazy business. It's kind of fun. It's all new technology. There are different packages that we're conceptualizing in our head of how to bring this to the market. For example, the other day we were challenged to charge a Tesla car for 15,000 miles of every year. And the challenge was, gee, how much solar do I need to do that where I never have to pay gas again?
Yeah. How, okay. Now
So we did all of the arithmetic, and we looked at the size of the batteries in the Tesla, and we looked at how much storage we have and what time of day we're going to be charging this. And it turns out with 10 solar panels and the right size battery, you'll never have to buy fuel again.
Come on, you mean that we can power a Tesla, drive in at
10 solar panels,
15,000 miles, and that's
solar panels and the right battery, because you have to buffer the energy during the day.
Yes. Yeah.
That you can charge the car at night.
Yeah.
10 solar panels with the right battery will take a Tesla 15,000 miles. And that's about what we look at on a yearly basis. So
that would make sense. And that way you can just drive right past the gas station and kind of wave to everybody else and say.
And so we figured out, okay, how long, you look at how many miles can you go on a full charge with a Tesla, and of course there's all kinds of excited, numbers you hear, like 300 miles, but we said, okay, let's be conservative. We'll say 200 miles. You go 200 miles on a charge. So how many times you have to charge it to get 15,000 miles? And so you could do all the ticket. It turns out a solar panel system in your backyard with 10 solar panels on it, maybe you pull under it like a little carport, plug the car in. That would so it was a fun arithmetic thing. I don't know if we'll ever roll that out, but we think
I think that's interesting, because then that way it really helps you to, it depends on you. If you're the analytical, love the spreadsheets, love the data, which I prefer, because I want to see the numbers. I want to see, if we do it here, but if you tweak it here, what does that do? And how can we improve? And that's how we improve and we build. It even affects, well, and we're talking about the Tesla, that would affect me in my business in real estate. Tesla is a luxury item. And a lot of homes are going to either the hybrid vehicles or electric. Well, we have to have systems in the homes in order to charge that, because otherwise not everywhere has a charging station. So we have to think differently, and then you sell differently. So I like the data. So when you get that, let us know if you get that little pet project going, because
we've already got it on the wall here.
Actually, you do. Okay.
We think we've got it. We think we've got our hands around it. So it used to be that we focused on the technology, and then in order to do that, you had to focus on the financial. And in order to focus on the financial, you had to understand, how big is the system, how much energy it's going to put out. And we go green automatically. Everything we're doing is, can be under this great big umbrella of saying going green. So in summary, I think we think the world is going electric. Everything's going electric. Everything from tools to cars to trucks. And the cleanest, purest source of electricity that you can get anywhere on the planet is the sun. Whether you're in Alaska, you need
wherever it is, it's the sun.
You need electricity. You can get it.
We start our day and end our day with it too.
The sun will never run out, and if it does, we don't care.
We're done. And if it runs out, we're done.
I think that there is a lot of intermediary, like wind energy, believe it or not, is caused by sun. You know, the sun is
The
creating,
sun heats it up and moves it. Yeah.
you know, like everything originates as solar energy. And the closest we can get to it right now is taking that solar and making electricity right on the spot. Um, no more centralized generating plants generating and transmitting electricity out to us. Um,
We're our own little sun, our own little generating. We're our own little hub.
the national grid, the national electric bill, is a very powerful national resource of ours. I mean, we're not trying to diminish the importance of the grid. When you think of our grid, we can plug in a little 1 watt transformer to charge our telephone, or we can go welding in the garage, you know,
Yes.
sucking up
In the
hot,
same house.
and the grid takes it. The grid is flexible enough to where, so we're not trying to diminish the importance of the grid. It's a national asset. What we're trying to do, though, is to take those nuisance loads off of the grid. You know, Mrs.
Yeah.
Jones's house, and you know, if you could just unload
Charge your
some of
Christmas
the
lights.
nuisance loads that are very expensive to support on the grid. The grid can be a significant backbone. It can provide resiliency for those off-grid homes, and we think at the same time everything's going green.
Amazing. I agree. I think it is going green. Stick around and we'll wrap up after this. Fred, give us, how do our audience, how do they reach you? What's the best phone number, website? Give it all to us.
Okay, well, my company started off as a school, and the name of the school is the Wind Sun Institute. Those 3 words, Wind Sun Institute. The company is Plymouth Solar Energy. We are a DBA under the Wind Sun Institute. And the logic there was that we would be training people with all of the solar credentials and so forth. And then the company would just keep the good people that are out of school.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we support our own workforce by training them first and seeing which ones are the most promising. We usually bring on a bunch of interns over the summer. We have a core group of about 10 to 12 people. And the way you reach us, not that I can do solar in your neighborhood, but
you never know.
we're at PlymouthSolarEnergy.com. Pretty simple. PlymouthSolarEnergy.com.
Perfect.
I'm Fred at PlymouthSolarEnergy.com, and there are other people, first names at PlymouthSolarEnergy.com. So we're excited about 2023. The financials look good. The technology is really taking off in a lot of different directions. We've got the storage systems. We've got the automobile integration, EV to PV kind of thing, and we're having fun.
I think it's amazing. Amazing. Stick around after this. We are going to wrap up. This is Jennifer Williams. Thank you very much, Fred, for being a guest on this episode of LUXE Life. And for more information, we will make sure to have all of his contact information in our description. Until next time, see you soon.